Information in this podcast is of general nature only. It does not take into account your personal needs or objectives. Before investing in any product, you need to consider your personal situation, needs and objectives. Always seek professional advice for your particular circumstances and needs prior to investing.
G'day again, Lauren. How are you going?
Hi, Dave. Good. How are you?
I'm well. I love these little hi agains after we haven't really left because we've just recording the next episode back to back.
It's good. It's efficient.
So this episode, it should be a nice short one, unless we get bogged down on something fun. We wanted to talk about what happens once your property's been built and you're ready for the what's next, right? So you've identified that you want to become an SDA investor, and you've found someone to buy a property from, and you've built it, or it's almost finished construction, or you've just laid the slab, whatever stage you are along that construction process or purchase process, at some point you're going to ask yourself, well, what happens next?
Yeah.
Right? So we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because this is not a house in the suburbs that you go to Ray White or LJ Hooker about. It's a very particular product with a very particular set of rules, with very particular government agency overseeing the whole thing.
That's right, and that's key to the enrolment. So, look, you've made a good point there, is that you can't just, rock up at your local Ray White and get them to lease this out for you. There's a whole bunch of steps that have to happen before it's actually rentable. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to roll with it.
Trademark.
That's fine. So as an SDA investor, once you've got your house, close to completion, what will normally happen is you'll realize that you're going to need an SDA provider to enroll that property for you. And what enrolling your property means is actually to lodge all of the associated certificates and completion details of that property with the NDIS. And what that allows you to do is to actually place an SDA tenant in there and claim money against that house. So it's an absolute key to making it work. Your property, you can't claim SDA money without it being enrolled. So it really is pointless having an SDA.
So right there, let's just get something very, very, very clear.
Yeah.
As an investor, can I get the really high rent payments if my property's not enrolled?
No.
Okay. As an owner, as an investor, can I enroll the property myself?
No, not unless you're an SDA provider yourself, no.
Right. And if I was just, I want to do it myself. If I'm just Dave and I bought a property and I want to become an SDA provider to enroll my own property, how long would that take me to do? How much would that cost me? What are the downsides to that?
Yeah. Look, early on, this was a different conversation, but the regulations and the compliance have increased quite significantly, as have the timelines of becoming an SDA provider. So if you've got a small portfolio, whether that's 1 or 5 properties, and you want to claim your own payments and be your own SDA provider, you can do it, but weighing up the costs, time, and difficulty in doing that, quite often people with a smaller size portfolio, it's just not worth doing. The timeline to get an SDA provider number, so register yourself as an SDA provider, is generally sort of 4 to 6 months. So
that's after you've become an NDIS provider, because you need to be
no, you do it all in one.
Right.
If that's the only service you're providing, which generally it should be. So let's say you're just going for SDA providership, and from start to finish in registering your business all the way through to getting your NDIS SDA provider number, I would say approximately 6 months, but that's not just sitting on your hands waiting. That's a lot of work. Because you've got to prove that you've got the systems and compliance to basically meet the provider requirements.
But you've got to set up a business, essentially. You got to go through
it's a huge, and
to satisfy my own curiosity, a couple of months ago, I got in touch with an NDIS consultant whose job was taking people just like this from here to become NDIS SDA providers.
Sure.
Right? Just again, I wanted to satisfy my curiosity. And they're going to charge, it was about $4,500 for that service.
Yes.
And with current wait times and backlog, he said, look, expect 12 months.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That was the opinion. This is about 8 weeks ago, maybe 6
Okay.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, we're early March 2024 right now. So it was this year. He said, look, expect, some people will say they can do it less, but I mean, I do this for a day job. It's taken about 12 months, and it's going to
Wow.
be about 4.5 grand.
And it is an unknown because the NDIS, as try as they might, their commitment to timeframes is often missed. And a bit lax. So that is all an estimate, and sometimes it's quicker and sometimes it's not. So, you know, I suggest that if you are going to have a large portfolio, that might be worth looking into. But if you're not there yet and you're not planning to get there, then just engage with an SDA provider. Some of them vary their fees in terms of, you know, whether you'll be managing the maintenance yourself and they'll just be doing the SDA claiming and compliance. So there's quite a few different ways to you know, integrate with an SDA provider. But look, the key thing here, I guess, in bringing us back to enrolment is that you must be a registered SDA provider or have a registered SDA provider enroll your property with the NDIS in order to claim SDA rental income. So essentially everyone with an SDA investment will have to enrol their property. And the sooner, I guess, they engage with somebody to do that, and I would suggest that that process starts at 2 to 3 months out of practical completion at the latest. Then, you know, you've got a couple of months to get all your documents and all your ducks in a row, so that when the property is complete, it can be all lodged with the NDIS by your SDA provider and enrolled as close to practical completion as possible.
Yeah. Now, your practical completion also then comes with some final certifications from your SDA certifier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the trick for the investor is you can't actually lodge this paperwork until you get all of your paperwork together. So you can't drip feed the NDIA, right? They want to see a package arrive in their inbox complete. Now, DHS do this as a service. We spoke about DHS in the last episode. DHS, you know, we're the largest commercial SDA provider in the country. So that's outside of the charities and not-for-profits, the largest commercial operator in the country. And part of the core business of DHS is enrolling properties as SDA properties, right? Now, a lot of people provide the service. And again, please go out, Google SDA providers, find one in your area, find one you're happy with. My only advice would be find one that does it, has done a lot of it, does it as part of their core business, and it's not something they do on the side because someone's got to do it. Make sure it's part of their business. Because you want an organisation who can do this and they've got the relationships with the NDIA, where if there is a problem, they can pick up a phone and talk to their contact and go, oh, this means that, and it's solved that day versus
the problem.
Right?
Yeah.
If you go to an SDA provider who's managing like 10 properties, they're new, they do 2 of these a year, you're going to get burnt. So find someone with some experience. Doesn't matter if it's us, go somewhere else, but that's the piece of advice there. And then so enrolment. So I guess the takeaways are you can't get the big rent unless you're enrolled. You must get enrolled. It's a requirement from the NDIA. It's part of the scheme works. You must be enrolled. It then must be managed by an SDA provider. So you can't just give it to Ray White on the corner. It must be with an SDA provider, your property.
Yeah, just to address that and NDIS compliance and the SDA provider obligations. So there's a lot that goes into managing these properties and a lot that has to be compliant with the NDIS Act. So it's not something that a real estate agent, you know, really has those qualifications and experience to do.
Yeah.
So that's why there's that SDA providership in between.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, and that's the compliance aspect of this is really important. You know, having worked with government a lot over the years, anytime government has money go out to the public, there's extraordinary levels of compliance. NDIS is no different. So they have to take it from with no problem.
Look, I think a lot of the time when I was brought up to dislike red tape and bureaucracy fairly fiercely. However, In this circumstance, if I was to look at the SDA market and think that that would be taken care of by the huge amount of real estate agents out there, I would be very concerned for the tenants in these properties. So there is just so much more that goes into it. It's not like managing a regular rental property. There is so much more communication, so many more stakeholders around every tenant, and so many complexities within their supports and within working with the NDIS that the workload to manage a regular tenancy in an SDA is much, much different than it would be in a regular real estate agent. So, you know, that's why you need those specialists in there. And so, you know, connecting with one that knows what they're doing and has experience in, you know, addressing enrolment hurdles and tenancy hurdles and NDIS funding hurdles is a huge part of making it successful. So starting that at that SDA enrolment piece, you know, like when they need to do that, it is really important to connect with a provider that knows what they're doing and has a good track record, because they can really help you address any hurdles you come across, which often there are many.
Yeah, well, it leads into sort of what happens after enrollment, what you're talking about. So there's a whole series of steps that as an investor you'll need to go through before you see $1 hit your account from a tenant's SDA plan. So step one is enrollment, and then and the SDA provider, once it's enrolled, will get reports back as part of that process to really understand what the property is, where it is, what it's now enrolled for and approved for, and what they can do with it. And then they can take that and look at what's in that market. Now, enrollment doesn't always guarantee tenancy, and this is the part that can be tricky to get your head around. So your property's enrolled. Let's say you've gone on board not an ideal product and not in an ideal area. It's been enrolled as per instructed. And then when it all comes back, the advice might be, it's actually not suitable for that. It's suitable for a little bit less, or maybe you need to tweak it a little bit. And there could be some massaging to do to have that property be really appropriate for that demand at that time in that area.
And tailor making an enrolment to the tenant demand can significantly change your return on investment too. So, you know, for example, if you've got a 3-resident house, but you've only got 1 resident in there, you're going to want to adjust that enrolment down to the lowest resident count that you can to maximize the budget of the 1 person in there. And that's an example that we see time and time again, where people have bought a 3-bedroom or 3-resident house. They're expecting 3 residents, but when the reality is not that you're going to get 3 residents, it's more likely, you know, 1 resident with a family, or perhaps 2 resident. You want to align your enrolment with the reality, because you're going to get a better return per participant that's in there if you do that. So, you know, really understanding what you've purchased, what it can be enrolled for, but what is going to give you the best outcome is very important in making sure your investment's a success. So it's just a key consideration that we don't expect investors to completely understand on day one, but it is something that we work to educate and to support investors to understand that component of what they've purchased, so that they can make the most of it and hopefully, you know, invest it at another time.
Well, you know, when you invest, you're not investing to give money away. You're investing to make money. And this, you know, an SDA investment really falls in the category of a social investment. You're looking to invest for the greater good of the community. You're providing a really valuable resource for some of the most vulnerable people in the community. At the same time, they're very expensive and they must make money. So what you said is spot on. Like, if you've got a 3-participant property, maybe each participant, their plan amount is something like $70,000, and you're never going to get 3 participants in there. But as a 2-participant property, maybe their plan amount is $90,000, right? So you can make you make the best of a bad situation. As a 1-participant property, maybe the amount is $120,000. But this is where working with an experienced SDA provider who has the staffing resources to look at that. And I know back at DHS, there's people that look at the plans all the time of all the people that are on the books and go, is this plan, is this property type, is it maximized? Right? If it's only ever had 2 people but it's enrolled for 3, I know they'll go back and adjust the enrollment so that you get better.
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so then once we're enrolled, then we look at that, we get the reports back, and we go, and this is the subject of another episode. But then we look at, okay, we're going to look at the tenant demand in the area, the makeup. Is it a single participant property? Is it a 2 or 3 participant property? Can we attain that density? Can we attain that number? And then we go through a process that we call tenancy matching if it's a multi-resident property, and then tenanting. If it's a single resident property, if it's a HPS apartment in a high demand area, it'll be filled nice and quick. And it's just, there's no need to do any matching because it's a single resident property.
No, the single res is just tenancy placement. It's we do a really thorough intake and very, very thorough marketing. So we're very hands-on in each region that we're tenancy matching in. But that is, post enrollment. So we've got the enrollment piece that has to happen for every property in order for your property to be used for SDA. And then you've got your connection with an SDA provider for your property management, essentially. And then you've got the marketing piece to really drum up that tenancy inquiry. Because I think the other piece to this, I know we're talking about enrollment just quickly because I'm bit passionate about that bit, is that, this is not a regular residential tenant that you're looking for. You're looking for a niche within a niche that's got very specific needs, and, your property, yes, it meets the design guidelines, but quite often that won't quite work for a certain person. So your niche comes down even more. And so finding those tenants and really making sure you've got people there that understand their needs and can work with them to overcome, any barriers to housing is really important to make sure that your investment actually gets connected with the right people that's going to make it work. So that tenancy matching service that we offer, and that's readily available out there in industry. Everyone does it a little bit differently. It's the key to actually making your property
work. You're also matching the participants' plans with the property enrollment type as well. What some people don't get is that if you're an NDAS participant with an SDA approving your plan, then that approval will say, okay, your approval is in a shared house at this level, right? So then you've got to match that to the right house in the right area that comes online to suit that need. It's not just, you're approved for payment. It's a very particular type of payment they're approved for, and a very particular property type. Very particular.
And sometimes you have to know, what you can do as their, housing person. I don't know what we call ourselves. Home and Living Connections team. So our Home and Living Connections team will really walk that path with a person trying to find housing. They'll look at what they've been given in their SDA plan, how to maximize that so the person has the most choice in terms of what they can look at, and then negotiate with owners on their behalf to utilize their funding in the property of their choosing. So having somebody that understands what they can and can't do with funding, what reviews are available to that funding, and what might be more suitable if they think that the funding is inadequate for whatever reason, and have the means to actually address that, and then be able to walk that path with the participant and the investor to come to a really great solution. So that tenancy match, there's a lot. It's not just marketing. It's not just putting it up on a couple of websites. It's not just social media. There's a lot of hand holding that goes with it, and that's why I always like to just stress, this isn't an open home that we're going to hold and there's going to be 40 applicants on your doorstep the next day. This is a tailored industry, and our approach is very hands-on, and that's why we often have successes that, yes, it can take longer than a normal tenancy to place, but once you get somebody in there that's been matched really well and has been supported to make the right decisions along that process, you can have a very good long-term tenant in there. So yeah, the industry is great. It's complex, and it can be difficult and fraught with misinformation, but if you do it right, it also has some really excellent outcomes. And I can vouch for being there along a lot of those journeys for tenants, and how fulfilling it is, not only for them, for us as a team, to see the outcomes people are reaching.
Give me 1 second, Loz. I'm sorry. So there's a lot there, right, Loz? So I think again, the keys are, it's not just building the house and then tenants come. There's always a process. There's enrollments, and then we move into the matching and tenanting phase, and that itself is a whole body of work.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
And then we'll get into that maybe in the next episode or an episode down the line.
Yeah, there's always so much to unpack, and I'm here for it. So yeah,
right.
Thanks for talking about that. It's good to go over
you.
every now and then.
Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Dave. Bye.